Hi there, I'm Lucy Macdonald, your team physiotherapist. I know some of you have met me before, but for those that haven't, I have 20 years experience treating marathon runners and have clinics in central London. So my raison d'etre is to try and get all the information in here out to you guys so that you can enjoy your marathon training and ultimately complete your marathon for the awesome cause that you are running it for. So today what I want to cover is the big question that I know people are banding around at the moment, and that is, I'm injured, am I going to be able to run the marathon? Is my body going to be able to do this job for me? So I'm choosing to do it at this particular time because it is the last week that that your marathon chosen charity is trying to put together the final list of the people that are going to be running the London Marathon. This week is the deadline basically, so now's the time to really invest your heart, soul and body into the process if you haven't already. So I'm injured, can I run the marathon? Now a huge amount of the response to that relies on two things. One, what type of injury you have, and two, what do you do about the injury at this point in time, and particularly what you do around rest. So the first thing is, what type of injury do you have? Now, there's an absolutely tiny minority, I mean, such a few number of possible injuries that you might have that would mean that you can't run the marathon. They have to be incredibly severe, because even the more moderately severe injuries like stress fractures, most of them you have enough time to recover before the London Marathon, as long as you do the right things. There are a tiny minority that need longer rest than we have available, but the majority you have enough time to rest as long as you do it in the right way, and then you build up your loading with strength conditioning, cross training, etc. In the right way. So the only other thing that would stop you from running the marathon is some kind of severe physical or mental health issue. And do take into consideration that mental health component as well as the more obvious physical health. And if you're not sure, please do go and see your GP this week and talk it through with them, because they'll be able to give you advice from a medical perspective on those things. Right, now my advice around injuries. So we've covered the teeny minority that might be very severe stress fractures, and then the majority of stress fractures, they are, as I say, if you rest them properly and then build up your loading properly, then you still do have time to run the marathon. Now, I'm talking about stress fractures like that's the thing that you've got if you're injured, and it's still very unlikely that your injury is a stress fracture, but I'm getting all the kind of the more minor ones out of the way first before I move on to the majority of them. So how do you know if you have a stress fracture? It doesn't come down to severity of pain. So stress fractures can actually be quite minor in terms of the intensity of pain. And also the pain can move around, so it can refer from various different parts of the joint, of the region. So severity and location, consistency of location are not two that you can rely on, and likewise weight bearing. So it is possible that you might not be limping, or that you are able to weight bear and even run with relatively low pain levels if you do have a stress fracture. So that they are no way of knowing. Those three things are not ways of knowing or ruling out stress fractures, which are common myths. So how do you know? Well, there's three main parts of the body that are predisposed to stress fractures in runners. One is the hip. So you might feel pain at the front of the hip, side of the hip, or around the back of the hip, around the buttock area if you have a stress fracture, or a combination of all of those three. Likewise, the shins, the shins are predisposed to, are common areas that you can experience stress fractures. And that could be the inside of the shin, outside of the shin, occasionally referring to the calf, but mostly around the fronts of the shins. And then the third one is the foot. So particularly the outside of the foot or around the tops of just beyond the ankle, those are particularly common areas of stress fractures. So if you have any pain in your hip, buttock, shin or foot, then you absolutely need to get them checked out. And I'd recommend that you get them checked out by someone experienced with marathon runners. So a running specialist physio or someone that sees high volumes of marathon runners, because otherwise they might miss it. You don't pick up stress fractures necessarily on x-ray, so the only real way of knowing if you've got a stress fracture is by having an MRI. Obviously they are not readily available on the NHS, but there are ways of managing potential stress fractures or without having to have an MRI. Obviously an MRI is ideal, but there are ways of managing it, and I'm certainly doing that with a number of people at the moment. So make sure you see someone who can then give you very, very clear instructions as to how much you need to be resting, the extent of the rest. So do you need to have crutches? Do you need to wear a boot? Do you need to stop walking? Are you able to do strength conditioning training? Are you still able to do cycling, cross training? All of those things, really detailed advice over what you should and shouldn't be doing, because you obviously want to be trying to maintain as much as your muscle strength and your soft tissue resilience, so resilience of your tendons, ligaments, joints, etc., and your cardiovascular fitness as much as safely possible. Right, so that's the minority of the injuries that you might be suffering from at the moment. But bear in mind that even though they're the more severe categories, certainly that second category that I've talked about, if you rest it and do the right things, you should be absolutely fine to run the marathon. But just make sure you do the right things. Okay, the big majority of the injuries that you're experiencing at the moment will be of your tendons, muscles, ligaments, cartilage of the joints, and those injuries also need to be managed well. They're less concerning in terms of potential long-term side effects, but they also need to be managed properly. And by that, I mean, in general, less rest than is generally prescribed. So that's because, and if those of you have heard me talk about this before, this will be a bit of a revision. Most of the structures of the body, apart from fractured bones, respond well to being loaded. So in other words, your tendons become stronger and recover quicker if you put some forces through them. Likewise, your muscles will adapt and become stronger if you put stress through them. And the same with all the other structures of the body. So how do you know whether you're getting the right advice or how long you should be resting for? So 3 to 4 days is generally an acceptable amount of time to rest. And certainly if you're being advised to rest by a physio or other health professional for that amount of time, that's perfectly acceptable. However, anything longer than that really is too long. And it should be a matter of modifying what you're doing rather than resting it. There's lots of different ways that you can modify. You can change the quality of your training sessions. So maybe you do more or less intervals, more or less hills. It might be that you focus less on distance, more on time. It might be that you change up the frequency of your running. And most importantly, you look at the bigger picture, so the recovery component of your training program, including nutrition and that kind of stuff. And I'm really happy to advise you on all that kind of thing. And then also looking at why is it that particular part of your body is being overloaded, is being stressed. In other words, looking at the biomechanics. So, and then giving you things to strengthen bits that we've identified as being weak. So perhaps the quads muscles, a component of the quads muscles needs strengthening, or the alignment of your knee over your foot needs addressing, or perhaps your pelvic position isn't ideal for your particular injury. All of those kind of things we can identify, treat, and then make sure that you're able to run the marathon. But really, all those things in consideration, it really comes down to whether you have invested your heart and mind in completing your marathon. And I have no doubt that because you are running for such an incredible cause, the minority of things that I mentioned at the very beginning, those things aside, so severe mental or physical health issues, those things aside, you will run this marathon. I've seen hundreds of people over the years, having probably thousands actually, having wobbles at this stage, and they have all gone on to run the marathon, and there is no reason why you should be any different. Having said that, if deep in your heart you don't feel that it is the right thing for you this year, then there is absolutely no harm in deferring or reconsidering your options, either with your GP or the wonderful supporting staff from the charity. So please do get in touch with me if you have any worries about any injuries, any niggles, any pain, you're not sure that your body is up to the job. I'm the person that you need to speak to. Chances are I will be able to reassure you. Email me, I'll give you free advice by email. So if you email me, lucymacdonaldphysio@hotmail.co.uk, or if you'd like to send a message securely, because my Hotmail obviously isn't secure, so lucy@octopusclinic.com. So if you email me, I'll give you free advice, including exercise and things that I think would be appropriate. And by all means, you can book in to see me or one of my running physio team. We do WhatsApp consultations, so if you can't get into London for whatever reason, then we can do a consultation by WhatsApp and then link in with local therapists if that's necessary. If you have any particular things that you'd like me to make a video on next, then please let me know. Otherwise, do go ahead and follow us on social media, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, the usual lot. It's @Octopus Clinic. And in the meantime, I look forward to hearing from you, and I wish you all very happy running. Bye.